There's been a lot of good baseball players.
Yeah, but nobody like him off the field. I mean, there's a reason it's the Clemente Award, right? I mean, he was the man. I mean, he dies helping people. That's the definition of a hero.
You are now tuning in to the Relentless Project. Real people, real stories, real life.
Well, I appreciate you for jumping on the Relentless Project. This is the one with Duane Rieder, and I'm excited for this because we've been talking about starting a segment to kind of highlight the museum and what you've built here. But before we get into all that crazy stuff, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're in photography. How did you get into such a niche profession?
Yeah, I think being at the right place at the right time. When I was 19, I moved to Los Angeles. I was going to be a welder out there, and I just didn't have the seniority it took, and so I was like, I gotta do something else. And at the same time, the priest at our church hands me a camera. And he says, Duane, you got to take pictures of all your baseball teams. And I'm like, wait, I don't know what I'm doing there. And he goes, well, you're in charge of the league. You take the photos, get the group shots. We're going to put them in the newsletter. And I had this little 14-year-old kid that just idolized me. And I was, like I say, 19 at the time, and I was really good at baseball. I was pretty athletic. And so he goes, hey, mister, well, I'll help you take the photos, and we'll go back to my dark room and we'll make prints. And I'm like, whoa, slow down, little man. Dark room.
Oh, that's the old negatives, right?
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell's a dark room? I'm a hillbilly. I'm from the mountains of Pennsylvania, from Elk County, right? I'm like, what's a dark room? He goes, my dad built me this dark room where I could make my prints. And you've maybe seen it on like TV or something. So we do it. We take the photos. We go back to his house. We start making the first print. And when I see that print come up in the developer, I'm like, what the hell is that? He goes, that's how you make a print. You put it in developer, the stop bath, and the fixer. And I'm like, whoa, I want to do this. Screw welding. I want to be a photographer.
Really?
Right there.
Because a lot of that,
2 seconds.
I would see that and be like, this is a process.
Yeah.
You know, especially nowadays where you take a picture, you move it over to hard drive, you do some editing, and boom, done.
Yep.
That's a whole different beast.
Oh man, I put a lot of hours in the darkroom processing. How I become fairly big and kind of famous is I was really good at making that brown tone. So all the images at the Clemente Museum it's called sepia. So it's a toner. It's called sepia toner. Kodak made it. It's deadly. Like literally on the package, it's got the skull and crossbones and says this can kill you. And so I just got really good at making these sepia tone prints. And this is now like 88, 89, and it just became hip. It became in vogue to have a sepia tone photo for your fashion spread or your portrait of your banker or an advertisement for a UPMC type thing. And so everybody wanted a sepia tone. Well, I was the king of sepia tone. And so
That was out in LA?
No, this was back here now.
You came
so
back
I move
here
and I go to school at the Art Institute. And I start my photography business. I graduate in 86, started it in 87, off to the races. I'm getting the phones ringing off the hook. I had a partner for the first couple of years named Frank Walsh, who was a hard worker, and we had that same love of sepia tone. And so after that, I go on my own, buy this firehouse. I buy this building in 1994, move in 1996. But when I'm buying the building in 94, we get asked to do a calendar on Roberto Clemente. And I get to fly to Puerto Rico and meet Vera through my photography biz. And I tell everybody here when I'm giving my tours, I grew up with the newspaper, the Pittsburgh Press. It had every once in a while would have a section on the weekend called the Roto section. And it was a little color insert that was in the black and white newspaper. And, bad quality black and white newspapers were back then. So to get this little peek at some color, well, 2 times in Roberto's career, the whole Roto section was done on Roberto. So I remember this photo growing up as a kid that he's standing on the bridge to the house with this beautiful this blue silk shirt, holding a pet monkey on a leash. And I'm like,
Like
wow.
a little capuchin? Or I always wanted one.
He brought that monkey from, he got it in Nicaragua, which is ironic. He gets it from in Granada, this little town. And there was a restaurant where you would go and eat. But before you would actually, maybe while you were waiting for your reservation, or they would take you on this little boat and take you across this small island called they called it Monkey Island. And monkeys would jump on your boat. And I've been there. So monkeys, you'd be scared shitless because you'd be like, oh my God, these monkeys are, if you don't give them a cracker, so the guide knows to have, each person's got a cracker.
Gotta come prepared.
If you don't feed them, they're going to punch you in the face or something, right?
How big were these monkeys?
Probably like 30, 40, some 50 pounders. The one he had was probably 40 pounds. And, when you see that, you see this guy, the slickest guy you've ever seen. How beautiful is Roberto? And he's got this blue silk shirt. And he's holding that. Yeah, I grew up in the woods, like I say. We had a pet cow. He had a pet monkey. And I'm like, wow. So now it's 1994, and I'm walking across that bridge, shaking. I'm going to meet Vera Clemente for the very first time. And going across the bridge, the thing I remember is I look down, and there's koi fish in the ponds, and that's why there was a bridge over this moat, and there was koi fish, and I never thought about it because you couldn't see it from that angle. So now I look and I see these fish, and I'm like, oh my God, this place is magical. And I go to the door, and the door knocker is a baseball bat with a 21 on it, and I go knock, 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 and Vera Clemente opens up the door, and she's a hugger. I'm from a long line of non-huggers.
Puerto Ricans
she's
are huggers.
Hugging the living bejesus out of me. And she's like, hola, Duane, hola. And I'm like, what does hola mean? I don't know at all. I'm just
There's no Duolingo back then.
Yeah, I'm like, what does hola mean? Right? But I could tell it was something very, it was nice because she was smiling and hugging. And then I spent 2 days in her house with her. And that's when I photographed the gold gloves all together and the silver sluggers. And I'm photographing all these things that some we're going to bring back to Pittsburgh for the calendar. Some I can't carry all this stuff back. So I set up a little makeshift studio. I literally went down the street and bought a bed sheet and laid the white fabric as my background for the 12 gold gloves. So you can imagine growing up a Clemente fanatic, I'm now in the house with Vera and Luis. Luis was there at the time. And they're setting up the 12 gold gloves all in a row for me to take a photo of them. I mean,
how crazy is that?
That was it was insane.
To have them all in the same room, to have Roberto there.
It's the only photo ever. I got the only shot of the 12 gold gloves.
Is that picture still, do you still have that?
Yeah, we just posted it because now our goal here at the Clemente Museum is we're trying to acquire all 12. We have 6. We're trying to get the other ones either on loan or purchase or trade or whatever it would take to get them here. And so that's been our goal. So we posted the photo of all 12 together. It's pretty awesome when you see that.
If any of you have access to these gloves, please reach out to Duane, reach out to the Clemente Museum. We got to get those back here.
Yeah, they need to come for at least a couple months for an exhibit. Like I say, we don't need to own them all. I'm not a greedy person, and the museum doesn't have to own them. But if we could just get them here, they haven't been together since 1997, so that'd be kind of cool to get them here for an exhibit.
We're due for a reunion.
Yeah.
So speaking of, we're here in the basement, and this is the engine house, and how did the Clemente Museum come to be? Like, it's my understanding you put your blood, sweat, and tears in this thing, and it's a beautiful place. Every time I come in here, you feel like at ease. You see all the memorabilia and the pictures, and just there's so much history here in Lawrenceville and Pittsburgh, and people don't even realize as much history that's here. How did this come to be? What was your goal? Like, did you envision a museum coming to be, or how did it start?
No, there was definitely no planning for this, either the winery or the museum. I'm just a photographer. This was my studio. We're sitting in we don't call it a basement. We call it a cellar.
Cellar.
It's the wine cellar.
The wine cellar.
So this used to be my wood shop where I would build my own props and sets stuff for my photo shoots. The room behind us, the Cervelli cigar room, it used to be my black and white dark room. And then the little room where you just were in over there, that was my color dark room. And so there was no plan on a museum. And I buy it in 94, move in 96. I start the Clemente archive to help Vera that year in 96. And it goes 10 years, just the archive. And then in 2006, Vera and the Clemente boys came here while they were after their meeting with the Pirates about the All-Star game at PNC Park. And so they came over afterwards. It was just my studio on that first floor. There wasn't one thing Clemente. There wasn't even a baseball card. And they came in and they were like, hey, would you be willing to host the Clemente family party here? And I was like, well, yeah, I would love to, but all the Clemente stuff's up on the second floor. The archive was all up on number 2. And so I'm like, well, I said, I know who you're inviting. They'd already told me they're going to have Orlando Cepeda and Juan Marichal and Manny Sanguilla and all these older Latino players. Well, they don't do steps. They don't like to do steps. A couple of them could do steps. Manny Sanguilla hasn't gone up and down steps in 40 years. And so I'm like, well, what are we going to do? That's everything upstairs. I was like, and Vera says, oh, it's okay, Duane. We'll do the food and the wine and the dancing down here. And I went, dancing? What do you mean dancing? She goes, we're Puerto Rican. We dance and sing.
Yeah, you got to.
I'm like, oh my God, I want to be a part of this party. I want to. And the only way I tell everybody, if something's not planned in this building, I can't do it. So anytime I can volunteer, we used to have the Lawrenceville Town Hall meetings here. I did it for 25 years straight. If they weren't here, I couldn't be somewhere else. I can't leave this property. I've got to be here all the time running everything that goes on here. And so I was like, if I do the party, then I can be at the party and I'll kind of be in control of the timing and the layout and all that. So I said, okay, I'm in. I want to be a part of the dancing and I'll do the party. So that was June 3rd or 4th. They flew back home to Puerto Rico. The party was July 9th. I transformed that whole first floor in what it is today for her party.
Moved everything.
I went absolutely nuts. I framed all the pieces, all that timeline where all his documents are. We framed that in 30 days just for the party.
And it's still
It's the museum today. So nothing here was meant to be. It just evolved. It just happened. And I can't stop it. I tell people, this is Roberto doing this. I just own the property and I just manage it, but this all just came out of that party. And then when they came back, so when they fly into town on the 8th, Vera called me and said, Duane, can we all come over tonight just to get acclimated to the space and talk about the party for tomorrow? And I was like, oh yeah, come on over. Here's the magic moment. I had just acquired, she hadn't had a wedding album in many, many years, and I learned the hard way by her asking me to fix these 2 photos that were destroyed by sunlight. And I said, well, Vera, just get your wedding album and I'll track down the wedding photographer and I'll get the negatives or I'll buy them or pay him to make prints. And she goes, oh, Duane, someone took my wedding album from the house. I don't have it anymore. I'm like, oh, Vera, that's sad. And I was like, and with this now, stop giving anything out of this house. You cannot let anything go out of this house without talking to me. I said, I can get them. If somebody needs an image for a poster, don't you give them one of her original prints away. They weren't coming back. No one was returning things. No one was paying her. No one was taking care of her one bit. I said, stop doing that. Now I'm going to be a hypocrite here for a minute. I said, just give it to me. And I will take. And so I proved myself, with a few times over by making images from the White House with Richard Nixon. And I was making things better and buying photos and negatives. And so right before the party, Phil Dorsey, his best friend, had died, and Phil's son broke into his house during the funeral and stole a bunch of Clemente stuff and was selling this wedding album on eBay, and I bought it. So when they come in, the night of July 8th, 2006, I had a wedding album from her wedding that she'd never seen before. It wasn't the wedding album the wedding photographer took. It was photos that Phil Dorsey shot himself and put this little book together. Well, I had it here now. She had never seen any of these photos. Here comes 30 Clementes. They'd never been to Pittsburgh, never been in this building. And I walk them in, and I have the album laying on a table with a spotlight on it. And they went nuts. They were crying their eyes out. And Vera looks around and she goes, Duane, it's like a museum in here now. And I was like, hey, can I do that? Am I allowed to just open a museum? I wonder if I have to go to school or take a test or pay a fee or something.
That's it. One conversation. And
boom, here it is. We started the next day. We went around town. There was 100,000 baseball junkies in Pittsburgh. We went around to all the concierges at the hotels and gave them this little flyer. Come to the Clemente exhibit at Engine House 25. And we were packed. We were packed for days. And so that was the kickoff. No planning. It just evolved. It just happened out of her party that then turned into a little exhibit for, to get people in the door to see everything. And I started telling my story of what I knew, and we've been doing it ever since.
It's interesting because you still keep that spirit. Like, you're always having events here. You're always having, people over, and it's cool because Puerto Ricans love. I know this firsthand because I'm Puerto Rican. We love hanging out. We love people. We love, we're very amable. In English, it's like, I want to say loving, endearing, maybe, where we want to bring people to our spots. We want to show them because we want to invite them in. And you've created a spot here in Pittsburgh where you do that. And the one time I was here, you had a Latin producer who produced Justin Bieber's music and a lot of other Hispanic Latino artists, and they come in here because they want to be a part of something bigger. They want to see what your experience with the Clementes and Roberto, and what you've done with this place is amazing. So did you have the cellar here with the wine before, or was that something that you kind of like started doing after the fact? How did Engine House 25, the winery, become a thing?
Yeah, they start about the same time. The night of the party, the 2006. Yeah, I'm almost ready to get my license there. But going back to the calendar days, I started making wine in the early mid 90s, and it doesn't move here till about 99. Here again, no idea of doing a winery. I was just making homemade wine with an Italian guy in my neighborhood, and I was attaching my photographs to bottles to send them out to get work for a promo to go to my website. So 99, 2000, the website's that's when it was like you had to have a website. If you didn't, you were a loser.
That's a big thing.
And my name, as from the beginning, Rieder is usually pronounced Rieder, and it's spelled Rieder, but everyone spells it Reider. I'm like, who's going to go to Rieder Photography? I couldn't even get him to go to my site. And I actually won best site in the Eastern Seaboard.
How did that come?
I was working with this young design team, and they just went nuts, and they used my baseball images and all, and we created this website, and it went all the way to I was up against Coca-Cola, beat me out for the best in the country. So
you lost to one of the biggest
worth
conglomerates right now.
So I was a tiny little photography studio, but it got people. People started calling me because I was sending out wine bottles full of wine with a photo on it that was kind of geared towards their ad agency. And so people were calling. They wanted to buy the Dago red wine. They didn't want to hire me for photography. They wanted to buy the wine. I'm like, hey, wait a minute, that could be something. Maybe I'll start a relationship with this person if they want to buy a case or something. So I started applying for a license in March of 2009, where we get the license in Pennsylvania. Is one of the hardest states in America to navigate the alcohol.
We do everything
laws.
backwards.
Totally. It's rules from the 1700s that we're abiding by right now. But I'm the fourth person in the state to get this license. We start making wine for the museum. We kick off with the Clemente Cabernet and the Franco Harris, Franco's Italian Army wine, and boom, it just exploded. So there was no planning on the museum or the winery. They both just evolved in this space and happened. And, before I go too much further, I want to talk about here's the moment when I realize we've got to do something for Roberto in this building. So I do the party for Vera. The place is basically put together and looks almost like it is today. And we're always evolving, bringing in new stuff and moving stuff around, but it kind of had this feel for the night of the party. I finally get an old fireman to come in here and tell me some details about the property. So when I buy the building in 94, all the city knew was vacated in 1972 and condemned in 1974. That's all they knew. And we learned that they knocked 12 firehouses like this one down. This one stood because they let EMS form in this property until they figured out it was so in such bad condition. It was condemned, and the roof was leaking, and they were catching water in 55-gallon drums, and the pigeons were moving in. They moved them over to Shady Side, the Engine House 28, where they're still over there today. But this building was falling apart. I finally get an old fireman to come in here and tell me some facts about the property. I was like, he wants to tell me about our ghost here. And maybe we do a whole podcast about the ghost. It's going to actually be a podcast with the ghost hunters, the brothers that
really?
Ghost hunting are coming. Yeah, so this is going to be a whole nother. We have to maybe connect with them.
We will.
Yeah.
That kind of I don't know, that kind of spooks me.
Yeah.
So don't, because you like to have events here late at night.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're always here at night, and 100 people have seen them all in the same exact spot. So as soon as this old fireman walks in, he goes, "Hey, Duane, I want to tell you about your ghost here." And I'm like, "Listen, Chief, I know all about the ghost. I know his name's Bernard Kavanaugh. He's from Morningside. He was married with 2 children. He committed suicide here by drinking a bottle of acid in 1946. I was like, "I don't need to know any more about the ghost. I want to know what month and day in 1972 do you walk out this door?" And he goes, "It was the last day of the year." And I'm like, whoa, what? And I'm looking at my assistant, Elizabeth, and his daughter who brought him. Thank God they were here. They've got witnesses. And I'm looking at them going, I was like, "Yo, Chief, are you not a baseball fan?" He's like, "Nope. What's the big deal?" I'm like, "The big deal is you're sitting in the Clemente Museum, and Roberto dies on New Year's Eve of 1972.
Oh.
And he goes, "I'll be damned." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be damned too." I was like, what time do you leave?" He goes, 9 o'clock at night. "What time did the plane crash?" I'm like, 9 o'clock at night on New Year's Eve of 1972. The firemen vacate this property as Roberto's plane's crashing into the Atlantic Ocean. I learned that 21 years after buying the building off the city. And built
goosebumps.
21 years I was in the building the day I found that out. I mean, how can you? Then we rip a piece of the ceiling out, which you've seen that steel beam up there, Andrew Carnegie steel beam from 1896, 21 inches thick. Everything in this property, we cut through the foundation to put the little cut through into the other building, 21 inches. Roberto Clemente only drank homemade red wine made in the city of Pittsburgh by the trainer of the Pittsburgh Pirates named Tony Barterone, Italian guy. Brings Roberto up for dinner. They set him down for a pasta dinner. They put the Dago Red in front of him. He might not have, probably was he wasn't a big drinker. He was kind of against drinking. But to be social and to be kind to your host, you got to have a little sip. So he took a liking to the wine. And I had Tony Barterone here twice. Just had his son here 2 days ago. Tony told me the whole story. Montevera told me Roberto only drank the homemade red wine. Duane, he never drank rum or beer, just red wine. I'm like, red wine supports the Clemente Museum. I'm like, am I living in a dream?
Dude, that's wild.
It's nuts.
I truly believe life works in your favor if you choose to pursue it the right way.
If you let it go.
If you let it go. A lot of times we try to force things and make things happen and try to add our input into life when life is just going, and that's crazy that 21 inches thick, New Year's Eve 9 p.m. the cut, and like everything revolves around 21, or if you know Roberto Clemente, that was his number. Do you even know how that number came to be? Like, was he just given that number, or was there a significance to that?
He was given 13. 13 was his original number.
Oh, that's not very lucky.
And and it was, but I guess Puerto Ricans, Dominicans don't dislike 13 like Americans, maybe not as much.
Yeah, it's a different superstition.
Because A-Rod wore 13. There was 3 or 4 pretty damn good baseball players that wore 13. Roberto was given 13. This is 1955. He hit the ball hard his whole career. He hit a lot of line drives, and so he's hitting all these line drive outs. And he goes to this infielder named Gene Freeze, who he nicknamed Magoo from the cartoon Mr. Magoo. And he goes, hey, Magoo. And Magoo was getting all these blooper singles. And he goes, hey, Magoo, you get all these bloop singles, and I hit all these beautiful hard line drive outs. What's the deal with that? And he goes, well, Roberto, you're wearing an unlucky number. You got to get rid of 13. And he was like, what? So he wasn't thinking it was anything to do with the 13, right? So just luckily for him, a rookie named Paul Smith was wearing 21. He was just sent back down to the minors. So there was the 21 jersey. So he went in, he had counted, the day before, he'd counted the letters in Roberto Clemente Walker. It's 21 letters. And he was just sitting there fidgeting. They were watching a movie, and Phil Dorsey told me the story. He was counting numbers out, and he goes, 21. I'm going to ask for 21. He goes into Houlihan's office, the equipment manager. Hey, Hooli, you got number 21? He's like, yeah, we just sent Paul Smith down. Gives him the 21. Roberto Clemente Walker, 21 letters. Now probably the luckiest number, the complete opposite of 13. 21 is like, right? It's the number.
It's so funny because
the number.
In football, when I played football, I wanted 21 because Roberto wore it, and they're like, oh, you can't have 21. Something about positions or whatever. And I'm like, okay. When I played baseball, I wanted 21, couldn't get 21. And so, yeah, especially in Puerto Rican culture, 21's like, it's the number. It's the number to get.
Number.
And maybe it is because Roberto, his legacy is, and it's funny that he was a man, amazing on the field, but off the field, just as good, if not better. Philanthropy, he was a big people person. And we learn about Roberto as kids growing up. In the U.S., I don't know what would be equated to like someone you learn about, but Puerto Rican kids, Roberto, be like Roberto, be a good man, be good in sports, be good at what you do, but always give back because it comes back to you. So, and then that's how you live your life. There's a lot of moments, we've spoken in private about things that you're very selfless, and everything you do is to kind of aim to push Roberto's name. Why is that? What impact did Roberto have on you that you do this? You do this for him, for his family, for you, for the future of baseball, because you're a huge baseball guy. Mm-hmm. Why? But why? There's been a lot of good baseball players.
Yeah, but nobody like him off the field. I mean, there's a reason it's the Clemente Award, right? I mean, he was the man. I mean, he dies helping people. That's the definition of a hero. As I'm doing the calendar and I fall in love with Vera. I mean, I literally just my heart broke for her because her house in Puerto Rico got hit by Hugo in 1989 and got flooded, and they were constantly getting hurricanes and tropical storms. And when I get there, the photos most of them are wet and moldy, and so that's when I talked to her and Luis, and I said I could start this archive. And so my heart kind of broke for her. I come from a broken family. My dad left my mother in 1967 with 5 kids, 6 and under. And so I know what a struggling mother's all about. So when I see Vera and she has left with the 3 boys, my mom had 5, and she was working 2 and 3 jobs to try to put food on the table for us. And so I think maybe just the upbringing, and then I was a baseball junkie, and I get an autograph from Roberto in 1971. I was a 10-year-old kid, and I was really good at baseball, and so our little league team went down once a year for a game, and he signed an autograph for me, and he was kind to me, where a couple of the other Pirates were not so nice. And I think I heard the F-bomb for the very first time in my life, and it was like, whoa. So I just, that always stuck with me. And then the very next year, that was 71, the very next year he dies, and I'm a young kid, and I, don't have a lot of experience with death, and now Roberto's gone, and I'm like, I just couldn't grasp, what do you mean he's gone? A plane crashed in the ocean. He's a super athlete. He's going to come swimming out of the water. Never does, right? So now he's gone. And I kind of get away from baseball at that point. I get more into, I start playing basketball, and I love Dr. J, and so that was another humanitarian that I start following him. And I don't get back into baseball till my photography business. I'm doing photography for the Pirates. And I start going down on the baseball field and shooting portraits of players. And I started this whole, love of baseball again. And then I get asked to do the calendar and go to Vera's house, the Clemente house. And so it goes kind of like full circle at that moment.
Talk about full circle.
Yeah.
You get this autograph from this person you look up to, an athlete, good man. And then you're in his house where he slept, lay his head, trusted his family to be in, and you're in charge of kind of pushing his legacy. That's, man. I love coming in here. Just because the stories, we're all living life. We're all trying to, I hope, I give the people the benefit of the doubt. Everyone's trying to do what's best for themselves and for those around them. And you talk about completely selfless. That's a perfect example. That man, selfless, and then now you're pushing his name and his story and everything in here. Every time I come in here, you tell me a different story of him or of an item upstairs. I mean, I'm learning even more. Like, we've known each other for about a year or 2 years now, and I'm still learning as we're sitting here. I'm thinking we're going in here, I'm going to hear a lot of the similar stuff that I just want people to know, because this place, there's so much that is involved at the Clemente Museum and what you've built here, and I just want to push people to hear. But I'm still learning more. There's so much to learn, and that's why I think it's perfect to start the 21 podcast, because it's going to highlight things in depth. We were talking about this picture you have over there and different stories and other you have a photography book, a book you're coming out with or refining, and there's just so much to learn.
Yeah, I've been blessed. That people are coming. I'm learning new stories constantly from people that knew him, players, some of the older players. I mean, Dusty Baker, right? Dusty Baker came last year with the Astros after winning the series. And I'm telling that story about when Roberto the Pirates get him to dodge the draft. He didn't do it. The draft papers go to Forbes Field in 1958. The Pirates are like, they open up the mail and they're like, hell no, we can't lose our star player. The Pirates are in first place the first time in like 25 years. Like, we can't lose Roberto. So they start talking to the draft board. They send a letter to Roberto, 1958. We're playing the Dodgers for the very first time in LA. He says, dear Roberto, don't sign any of these military papers. We're going to try to get you out of this if we can. And so the Pirates spend months trying to get him around the draft by enlisting him in the Marine Reserves. And so we start uncovering all this paperwork and all these photographs. And opening night, when Vera comes, 2006, for the party, she walks in and she's telling all the Clementes, look, Roberto enlists in the Marines. And I'm like, back up, Vera. I got something you don't know. He actually gets drafted into the Marines, but the Pirates get him to dodge the draft by going into the reserves. And she's like, oh, no, I never knew any of that. And I'm like, look at all this. I had all this paperwork. You've seen it up there. It's intense, right? And so everybody loves that part of the story. And so I'm telling the Houston Astros, they're in a little semicircle. Dusty Baker's dead center. I luck out one day when a guy knocks on my front door and says, hey, Duane, I'm traveling the country. I wrote a book on being a good human being, and I met Roberto in boot camp. I was his drill sergeant, and we walk up to the wall, and there he is. He's in the photo, changing the gun for the bat, and I've been talking about this guy for 10 years, saying he's probably meaner than a bear with a sore ass, right? And turns out he was the nicest guy in the world, and he was his drill instructor in the service, and he had all the stories, and we sat him down in a couple chairs right by the photos and stuff. And he tells me Roberto Clemente sets the Marine record for chin-ups. He does 54. That's a lot.
Not even surprised.
That's a lot. I said, Bob, what's normal? He goes, most recruits are going to do 15 would be a good number that everybody could do 15.
Most adults right now couldn't even do 10.
Or 2.
Yeah.
Some people can't do 1. And so Roberto did 54, and they're like, yo, Roberto, you got the record, jump down. So he was ready to still keep going. So he hops down. The next day, he goes through the obstacle course, the fastest in Marine history by the stopwatch. They made him platoon leader. So I'm telling Dusty and the Astros that. And I said, Bob Terrell, the drill sergeant, tells us the record stood for about 10 years, but we weren't sure who broke the record. And Dusty standing there as cool as he could be. He didn't have the toothpick in, but he was doing that lip thing, and he goes, I broke Clemente's record. And I'm like, say what? What, Dusty? You're saying you broke Clemente's record in boot camp? He's like, that's right. I broke the record, the chin-ups and the obstacle course. And all the Astros were looking at him like, Dusty, you're the man. What? So then he spends the whole rest of the tour texting me photographs of him in the Marines, in boot camp. They let him dress up in the dress blues and go into his barracks and bust balls.
As they should. As they should.
No one messed with Dusty Baker in 1968. So he did it in 1968. So it was exactly 10 years. And I get to learn that here in this building by Dusty Baker in person telling me that story. That's the coolest thing I've ever heard of. And when I gave Dusty his first tour here, so there he is with the Astros. I gave him a tour about 5 years ago when he was on the Nationals. And we get to the end of that big timeline wall, and there's that photo, it's very famous, of Roberto Jr. kissing the poster of his father. It's kind of like one of those JFK moments, right? And he's bent down and he's kissing the poster. Now, Roberto's still alive. That's on Clemente Day, 1970. But Dusty gets all the way down to the end, and he sees that, and he just, Duane, excuse me, and he turns around. He's like, he's crying, and he okay, all right, continue. He broke down 3 times in his first tour here, and it's because he loved Roberto. He played against Roberto in Puerto Rico. He was Roberto was coach and player for the San Juan Senators. Dusty was playing for Santurce underneath Orlando Cepeda. And so they played against each other down there. And in 72, Roberto's gone, and he watched those Clemente kids grow up. The kids have always been on the field with their mom for all the All-Star games and World Series and Hall of Fame. So he was around the Clemente family quite a bit. And then just being idolizing Roberto. So 3 times he broke down and cried. And it was so awesome, so emotional to see Dusty Baker, the toughest guy you'd ever meet, crying because he loved Roberto.
That goes to show you, it speaks a lot to who he was as a person, and it's just like for example, I heard a story probably from you, I think it was, where, he finishes a game at PNC Park. It was a big game. Everyone's celebrating. Everyone's, probably getting ready to probably go. I don't know what baseball stars do. You just won the biggest game of your life. You're stars. You're rich. You're famous. Everyone. Roberto goes outside with the fans.
Yep.
Like,
that was him to a T. And meanwhile, all the rest of the Pirates were mad at him for doing that. Instead of being happy for him, I think that's the coolest thing. I just wish I knew somebody who got to give him a hug or a high five, even though Dusty Baker said he invented the high five. Roberto might have 1960 out there with the crowd. But that I thought was the coolest thing ever that he did that.
It's so surreal. We were, me and Junior, we were at the 50th anniversary at the statue, and we're there at night with RC3, Kaylee and all of them. We're there, and some families there. Some like random family. It's closed. No one's there. That's when construction was up. You had to kind of drive over the sidewalk to get to the statue. And we're there, 50th anniversary. We had just went to dinner. We kind of just want to pay our respects and share stories. And there's this family there, and they're staring at the statue. And they have no idea Junior is Junior. And I'm overhearing this conversation about a moment that they met Roberto. And I'm like, bro, I got a Junior. I'm like, you have no idea. You need to go talk to them. And he goes and introduces himself, and they start sharing stories, and I just sit back and I'm like, you learn another story.
Oh, yeah.
You hear so many people. He impacted so many people, and it's just, I pray to be able to leave something behind. Mm-hmm. Something of value, of substance. I want to be remembered for who I was and how I treated people, not how much money I had, but how you impacted people, because those are stories that are going to be passed down forever. forever.
Yeah.
And just sitting there at the statue, RC3, someone donated a little bat and they put it on the statue, and RC3s, we're playing baseball with a bat. And this family's here reminiscing a moment that was special to them. And here we have Roberto's legacy
Yeah.
playing baseball. They're just hanging out right there. It's so surreal to me. And you have to like reflect on that.
Yeah. Those are beautiful moments right there. I mean, when you get to talk to somebody who actually knew them,
Encountered
and changed their lives, and people, I mean, Justice Soda, I can't say her name. Chief Justice Sotomayor.
We'll go with that. Chief Justice.
Chief Justice.
I'm bad with names.
She became a lawyer because of Roberto Clemente, and now is on the Supreme Court because of Roberto Clemente. That's unreal. When you hear the stories of Tom Vilsack, the Secretary of Agriculture, wants to be buried in a Clemente jersey. You know, when you hear all these stories from people, he affected so many people's lives. It's just unbelievable. And I get to hear these stories here at the museum because people.
I was going to say, how does the museum open up that channel for you?
Yeah,
People come in.
They come when they come to Pittsburgh. You know, I usually say that when you get to Pittsburgh, if you're coming for an event, you're coming for a game or something, and it doesn't have to just be a Pirate game. It could be a Penguins game, Steeler game. Puerto Ricans love the Steelers too. So, you know, they come into town and they'll seek us out because they're here with not a lot to do. Usually the weather's so-so, and, you know, where are you going to go? There's no beach. There's no great shopping. They seek out the Clemente Museum and they come here, and I get these stories told to me all the time about how Roberto changed their life. It's amazing.
How can people, like, how do you get people in here? Like public tours, private tours. I see on your website there's different events you have. Is that things you seek? Is that people coming in? How does that work? Like if someone wants to have a tour, let's say I got 10 of my friends and we want to kind of like just hang out and kind of bring in the vibe and the ambiance.
Can we cut this for a
Yeah, no, it's raw. It's fine.
Oh man. I'm gonna die right here on the. What if I die on the podcast?
Let's hope not.
Oh man,
there's still a lot to do with the museum.
Yeah, I'm 62 years old. I went 60 years without allergies. These last 2 years, wow, am I getting killed?
My car, 2 days ago, completely yellow.
Covered.
Yellow. And I've suffered from seasonal allergies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now you mentioned it, my nose.
And now you're going to start.
And we don't cut. That's one thing about we don't cut. We keep it raw.
Oh,
we keep
good.
it going.
All right.
We keep it raw.
This is real right here. I'm choking to death.
So the mantra is real people, real stories, real fucking life. You know, I hate these podcasts where you jump on and everything's so scripted. Everything's like I'm gonna ask, and it looks good for social media. You know, those clip bites that they take and post, and it's like, but where's the rawness? Where's the story, the emotion? Like you can't, you know, I'm not perfect. I stutter. I say like a lot. Like when I see these back, I go like, and I'm like, I just did it again.
Yeah.
Why do I keep saying like? It is what it is.
It's a good word. Better
it's a filler.
Better than hate or something negative.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get very emotional, and I don't know how it started. I think maybe with Vera, when Vera would come here for our fundraisers, and she would sit on the dugout benches. We talk from the staircase, and it looks right down at him. And I would be thanking everybody, and we'd be having this beautiful night. And all of a sudden, I'd look, and I'd see Vera sitting there. I would start crying, right? And my wife's like, "You got to stop doing that. You cry too much." So last Saturday, I did we started a charity here called Wine to Water. We drill water wells in Africa and Egypt and Vietnam and these different countries that don't have running water in these villages. And so we've raised over $2.4 million, and I had to give this little speech. And it was my board chair, Bob Meter, who you know, we're sitting around talking about the wine and raising money for charity and doing this and that. And he was like, "I got an idea." So he come up with this whole, instead of water to wine like Jesus did, the miracle, he's like, "We'll call it wine to water. And we'll do an event here, and we'll raise money to drill wells." We started it about 14 years ago. And first time it was like 50,000, then the second year 80 and 100, now 2, 3, 4. Now it's gone through the roof. So I'm giving this speech over at the Carnegie Science Center because it outgrew it. We're not big enough anymore to host the events here. We do the VIP and we do the wine, but it outgrew us. So I started talking, and I look at all the people, and I'm talking about the rivers because you see the water and how we take it for granted. And now we're helping these people in villages that never had water before. And I start crying, right? And I get pretty choked up. And I came home, and my wife goes, "How'd it go?" I'm like, I cried. She's like, "You got to stop doing that. You got to." So
no, it says a lot about the passion behind everything you do. And I was just having a conversation with a good friend of mine, and we were talking about how there's no depth anymore in like anything. There's no depth. You know, we stare at phones all day. There's no depth in that. You know, you're looking at the highlight reels of other people's lives on social media, and there's no depth. When we talk to people, and that's why I tell people, I can't do small talk. I go deep.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm at a bar or at dinner or something, and someone's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I will tell you. And sometimes I'm sure people get frustrated with that. And like when I ask people, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" I'm listening. I'm ready for an answer.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times, good, and we go.
Keep on trucking.
There's no depth anymore. And when I meet people, that's a big part of this podcast, like sitting down with people, getting their story. And the feedback I get, people have been on hundreds of podcasts. And those are the people I kind of like you've done this before, you've told your story. And then they message me like, "Dude, you're like, that conversation was such a good conversation."
Yeah.
And I'll sit back and I'll listen to them multiple times. These are like hour-long episodes. I'll listen to them multiple times because I genuinely have a love for people. And I get hosed. We had that conversation before. Sometimes we do something for people, and then it blows up in your face.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people change. Oh, well, if that's how I'm going to be treated, I'm just going to do this differently. Why allow outside influences to change who you are? You know, I genuinely love helping people. Mm-hmm. I had the conversation with Roberto upstairs on the 3rd floor in his episode. Like, that is who we are. And people get upset at us sometimes, like, why are you doing that? You're not getting this dollar for it, or you're not getting this respect for it. I'm not doing it for that. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not my reason. Yeah. I want to give back and help people. And it's small now, but you know, God willing, the podcast blows up, gets popular, more people want to come on, more people want to listen, and a bigger impact it can have, you know, on anything I do in life. And that's why I connect with people so well, especially people like you, people like Roberto. I'm pretty sure me and Senior would have been tight, you know,
boys. Yeah.
But it's because it's you have a genuine love for people and pushing it, and I think that the museum embodies a lot of that, especially with the stories that tell. You know, you bring people in, you give them. You're here. You work more than anyone I know, and I say work, but as if you're getting paid, but. You do a lot.
I put a lot of hours in.
You're here in the morning. You're here at night after this episode. You're giving a tour. It's like, and I was hesitant. I'm like, I don't want to, like, on his downtime. You're like, no, let's do it.
And if the Yankees were in town right now, I'd be here till 3 a.m. with Rizzo and Judge and those guys. I mean, you know, when the players sneak in, they come late night.
After games, before games?
Yeah, so I'll go some days 9 a.m. till 2, 3 a.m. Not staying here the whole time, never leaving the building, usually missing lunch. I rarely eat lunch anymore because I just get running in this property, and I'm going from one thing to the next and trying to keep ahead of everybody and keep it nice and make sure it's perfect. I want everybody that comes walking in here for a tour to think that they're the first person's in. I don't want them to come and go, "Oh, this place is a little dirty and the trash can's full." No, I got to have everything perfect, like they're the first ones in the building.
Do you know what's unique about this place? Everything's so in your face. You had Aaron Judge's bat, or his signed bat here. You're like, "Oh, Aaron Judge signed that." That's right. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, I can touch that. It's like I can breathe on it.
I usually hand it to people, let people swing it, because then you get to feel what his weight and length of the bat. Because that's why it started with Clemente's 38-ounce, 36-inch bat.
I swung. I'm a big dude. I lift weights. I'm strong. Haven't played baseball in over a decade. You had me swing that bat, and I'm like, oh my goodness. This is what he played with.
It's like a brick tied to the end of the bats that are used today. His bat was 38 ounces, sometimes 39. Today, everybody's bat's 31 ounce.
Oh, and you see his, like, the videos that do exist of his swing. It's so, like,
Boom.
oh, it makes sense.
Yeah.
This dude's swinging a missile.
A monster bat. And so I let the players touch Roberto's bat. And then it started I just wanted them to feel the weight and length. And then all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, Roberto touched his bat? Wait, I'm going to get the Clemente mojo. And then they start rubbing it on themselves and they're like, oh my God, I'm getting the mojo. And then they would go hit a home run the next day. It's happened.
Is that why the Pirates are doing what they're doing?
Not this year. No, they haven't been over here this year. So,
well, I'm saying that's why they're not. That's why they're getting beat.
Yeah.
Players come here, they feel the Roberto.
They haven't been.
We got to coin a name. The Clemente has to be with a C. The Clemente something. We got to coin that.
Yeah.
Because it keeps happening. You've told me multiple stories of players who come here. They engage with the bat. You tell them a story about Roberto, and then they go smash on the Pirates.
Yeah. Ask Oswaldo Cabrera. If any Yankee fans out there, find Oswaldo Cabrera and ask him about the power of Clemente. He came here. He hadn't hit a home run in 3 months. He touches the bat. He hits a homer the next day to win the game for the Yankees. The Yes Network was here later that night because Carlos Beltran, the angel of baseball, bought the Yes Network a barrel of wine. So when they're in Pittsburgh, they come here and drink for free. And so they came over and then we were drinking. I was talking about Orlando Cabrera touching the bat. And then the next day he hits the homer. So they got to jump on it. They got to lead, right? They go running to him with microphones and cameras. And they say something, but how'd you hit the homer? The bat. It was the bat, the Clemente bat. So now it's this thing. So Sunday morning he calls me to come over to the clubhouse and get the bat. So the bat's here that he hits the home run with, broke his 3-month slump. I tell people that could be a major league record. Usually 3 months without a homer, you're gone. But they love this kid and he's so good, he's so talented. And they're like, Booney hung with him. And he was like, we're going to get this kid going. And it was Clemente's mojo.
Where's the bat? You said the bat's, you still have the bat?
Yeah, oh yeah. I got
Is
the
it
bat.
in? Is it in the building?
It is. It's upstairs in the bat room. In the bat room now with the judge. So I moved Judge and Cabrera upstairs. So it's a little more out of reach. When they were just sitting here in the wine cellar, people would grab them and start swinging.
You know where we messed up at? We just jumped into the podcast. I should have swung Roberto's bat
and got the mojo.
We're gonna have to. That's gonna have to be a ritual.
Yeah. Yes, we'll do it before we start
because we're actually starting a segment with the Clemente Museum, right? Called the 21 Podcast.
Yeah.
What do you envision that podcast? What can people expect from the 21 Podcast?
Well, I wouldn't want to say
it's a work in progress.
Yeah,
but
people are gonna, they'll probably get sick of me after a little while.
I doubt it.
But the stories we have, they just keep going and going and going. I don't want to say I'm the Energizer Bunny, but the stories that have been the things that have been coming to me, the players that come now, all these amazing people come and drop another story on me. And then just the stuff that we do have here, the memorabilia. I've already got 30 years of stuff upstairs, just laying.
But that's the tip of the iceberg. Like I'm staring at a barrel with Palomalu, a barrel with Bruno, a barrel with Leland, Vera's barrel,
Derek Jeter.
I'm seeing that.
Yeah.
Cervelli.
My man.
There's all
ex-Yankee.
And then all that. I'm not even going to get into it, but there's so many stories here.
Yeah. And so they come and like I say, they come, they love the place. They get a story. They touch the bat. They hit it's the mojo is here in the property and it's not me. I take credit for nothing here. I tell people the wine's pretty damn good. That's Roberto making out wine from heaven. I see that.
What do we got here?
You're low. That was the Vera's blend, and it's ironic. We were talking about Clemente Day with Roberto Jr. kissing the poster. The photo of the Vera's blend with Vera and Roberto hugging, that's Clemente Day as well. So they're hugging, Roberto's crying, Junior's kissing that poster. It's all the same moment right there. And this is the Vera's blend.
And you're still making it
and
today.
And it's magical, and everybody loves it. And
it's good.
Roberto's making that wine from heaven. I just move it around.
Yeah, you're the distributor.
Yeah, I'm the distributor.
You're the connect. You're connecting
That's all
everything.
I am. I just pour it for people. They love it. They buy it. They buy a barrel. They join our club.
How do you join the club? If let's say someone's listening, they want to,
Yeah.
man, I want to be a part of something. I want to give to the museum.
Yeah.
A good way to give to the museum is buying a barrel.
Join our club called the Clemente Society. The check for the barrel is written to the Clemente Museum, which is a 501c3. So I can tell you right now that Albert Pujols bought 2 barrels of wine, never had a drink in his life. He wanted to use our label. We design labels, so when you remember, you get your own label. So we do Albert Pujols' label. We ship him his wine. He signs the bottles. He raised tens of thousands of dollars for his charity. So he did it twice. He bought 2 barrels of wine. So it's a really unique club. You help me fund the museum. Without the winery, the museum's gone. The museum would have been gone in 08, 09 when the economy crashed. 9/11, in 9/11, 2001, I went a year and a half without working. Luckily, I had the winery and I could sell wine because even in a bad economy, people were buying booze, right?
Yeah, I mean,
And so the bad economy, 08, 09, and then the pandemic, we were closed for over a year and a half. And so the wine keeps this place going. And Roberto only drank homemade red wine by Tony.
the wine is the blood.
It's the blood.
It's the blood.
Yeah, the fuel, the glue. You could say so many things about the wine here right now. And so it's really helping us keep this place going. So the Clemente Society, there's 160 members. And we got Anthony Rizzo and Josh Bell and Ichiro. And
There's Bell's Barrel, right?
Yep. Josh,
see it from here.
The best.
You know what's going to be full circle? When the Relentless Project gets a barrel.
Yes. That'll be the moment.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's when I'm going to be like, wow, I'm doing this thing.
Well, hopefully this takes off and gets you to that.
I'm going to get a barrel. Mark my words. Once this is on the internet,
Yeah.
it's a fact. I can't lie. It's gone.
Yeah.
Getting a barrel. But it's so cool. What's your favorite? What would say it's your favorite blend? Because you experiment. You make the wine. Like,
Yeah.
What's your favorite wine to make? And then what's your favorite wine to drink?
Yeah,
And are those
yeah.
the same thing?
Pretty much the same. I mean, they're all kind of fun to make. You know, it's all very similar because the Cabernet is the grape. It's the Cabernet. The Merlot is the Merlot. But like this, we're drinking a blend right here of Sangiovese and Barbera, and those have been two magical grapes lately for me. It started out for Franco Harris. Franco was one of our best members, friends of the museum, helped us in so many ways, would come here for all our fundraisers. He loved wine. He buys a barrel. He liked the Chianti style wine. We're not allowed to call it Chianti because we're not in Chianti, Italy. We're in Lawrenceville, and the Italians would sue us. And so we called it the Franco's Italian Army wine, and it was a true Chianti.
Sounds better anyway.
Yeah, it sounded so cool.
Sounds better anyway.
And so it was Sangiovese and Cabernet. So then he buys a second barrel, and he's like, change the blend just a little tiny bit. And so we added a little Barbera. And so now it's this magical blend that everybody that got to meet Franco, and Franco's as magical and as unique and awesome as Roberto. The two of them, to have those two tied into this property and this city and this, the Steeler Nation with Franco, wow.
It's always evolving.
Yeah.
I like that. What can people expect? What's the Clemente Museum got up its sleeve for the next couple months? What can people? You guys have any cool events happening? Always have cool events, but
yeah. Well, we do these open houses now on something fairly new in the last year. We're doing an open house every Saturday when the Pirates are home. So that means Pirate fans and the visiting team fans. This week we got the Rockies coming in, and so some teams, Chicago, the New York Mets, they travel well and they come here. The Mets fans, they put them on buses and bring them here. And there'll be 3,000 Mets fans in Pittsburgh, and we get them all.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's so incredible. They come here. Roberto was loved in Shea Stadium in New York as much as he was here in Pittsburgh. They had Clemente night 3 times. They had Clemente night 3 times at Shea. We only had it once at Three Rivers. They made him honorary chief in New York City of the firemen. We never made him honorary chief here in Pittsburgh. So the New York fans loved Roberto Clemente. Obviously, a lot more Latinos, a lot more Puerto Ricans in that area compared to Pittsburgh.
Wepa.
Yeah, and so boom, they loved Roberto. I told Albert Pujols, he was my first tour here of a current player, and I said, listen, Albert, we don't celebrate you when you come to Pittsburgh, and you're incredible.
Yeah.
You're the man. But I said, when he went to New York, they would have a dinner dance for him in New York City, and have Shea Stadium would have Clemente Night, and they honored him wherever he would go in this country, and Puerto Rico, and out, and any of the Caribbean islands, and wherever that man would go, he was the man. And it was because how he helped people, worked with kids, did so much for charity. It wasn't the baseball. I mean, that helped him keep that platform and keep in front of people, but it was because he was a great human being. And so we think that we're just trying to keep that alive, do as much for charity as we possibly can. The winery, the wine has really helped a lot of charities. We have raised millions and millions and millions of dollars with this wine. We donate to every charity in Pittsburgh. And so I feel good about that.
Well, I'm excited to dive into a lot of that stuff with the 21 podcast, because this is just an intro of what's to come. The podcast is going to come out, ideally the 21st of every month, and it's going to be me and Duane, or Duane and a player, or Duane, whatever. It's going to be whatever it is. Let's say if people want to come here, how can people buy tickets, or how can people get a tour?
If you just go to our website, just go to ClementeMuseum.com, and Zoe and CJ will hook you up. They will get you in here. Look for those open houses on the home Saturdays. We do tours for, if you had your own group and you want to just come, you can schedule that date with our team. If you see existing tours that are going, we cap them off at 21 people, because they're all guided tours. We want you to hear the stories behind all the pieces and all the things that are here. What I was telling you earlier before we got rolling about Daddy Yankee coming here, and I'm giving him a tour, and I had him here one night for 5 hours with Yachty, and they were drinking and smoking cigars. But before we got started, I took him on a walking tour, and the whole time I'm giving him that tour, I look over at him, and his mouth is open, his jaw's hanging down. I'm like, wait, what are you doing? And he goes, what? How do you know all this stuff about Roberto? I'm Puerto Rican. I don't know any of this stuff. How do you know? Where did you get all that? How do you know this? And I'm like, well, it comes to me. I unearthed all this paperwork and these photos and the stories from Vera and Les Banos, the team photographer, and Phil Dorsey, his best friend here. Once the Clemente family accepted me into the inner circle, then everybody else would give me stories before they passed away. And so that's how I acquired all these stories. But just to come here and look at all the beautiful memorabilia, that's one thing. But to hear the story of Roberto, that's the linchpin. That's the reason why we're doing what we're doing. You got to hear the story of Roberto Clemente.
I urge everyone to visit the Clemente Museum. It's here in Lawrenceville. If you just Google the Clemente Museum, all the information is going to come up. Duane, I appreciate you for jumping on the Relentless Project. There's so much more to uncover, but that's for the next episode.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on, and I urge everyone, please visit the Clemente Museum. I'm going to have links on the episode. There's going to be links at the end of the video. Come, learn, live.
And then you'll stay tuned. Then you'll listen in for the next part 2 and part 3, and hopefully get to 21, because the stories are unreal, and you will be very happy here. And you can just go out and search some stuff. There's a little mini documentary that we pared down for Major League Baseball for a New Year's Eve event they were doing called Remembering Roberto. If you want to just get a quick peek of the property, once you see the property, you're going to want to come here.
Oh, for sure.
You're going to want, the building is incredible.
The pictures don't do it justice.
Yeah. And we had a famous Yankee sleep here in 1927. And that's where we'll leave it. Maybe we'll save that story for part 2. So think of that. 27 Yankees, very famous. I told Aaron Judge, the number 2 Yankee of all time. And all the Yankees picked who they thought it was, and not one person got it right. No one on the whole Yankee team, including Booney, no one got it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
And so think about that. Number 2 Yankee of all time slept here in 1927. There's big hints. Big.
leave your comments down because we're going to want to know. Thank you for jumping on the Relentless Project. This is the one with Duane Rieder, and we're out. Later.
Later.